All right, welcome to the weekend. So, great time to make a video, late night video here, but I have all the time I want. So, let's see where I left off. So, we're still on week 7. Now, I will say that Mbsr training has kind of become a bit of a chore, a bit difficult for me in week 7. And then I will say that I think I have to push back week 8. But I'll see if I can push it in. I'm just going to be busy next week, so I might not be able to fit it in. But week 7 we can certainly try to close out. I'll try to close out week 7. And then maybe next week, if there's time, I can close out week 8. If not, then I'll just take a break and then close it out later. So let's take a look at what we need to do to close it out. So we need to watch the rest of these videos. We need to do the rest of these readings, including by Paul Ekman. I made a so this is a science-based channel. This is a channel that is science and evidence-based. It's a technology channel. Through this Mbsr training, we kind of encountered a few controversial figures, and I will say Paul Ekman kind of is another one. If you go down to his Wikipedia page, there's a lot of criticism here. So it's like, on the one hand, who is without their due of criticism, but on the other hand, the criticisms are kind of like other criticisms are based on experimental and naturalistic studies by several other emotion psychologists did not find evidence in support of the proposed taxonomy of discrete emotions. And so basically the criticisms are his work doesn't pass up to peer review. It's just like his work just isn't like it can't be validated, and recently he's been making claims that his work isn't eligible for peer review due to confidentiality and security. Yeah, so I just want to point that out. I mean, on the one hand, nobody's perfect, but on the other hand, this is why it's so important not to hold up scientists as if they were celebrities, or like you don't looking at a scientist like they're LeBron James, or like worshiping them and idolizing them. I mean, Einstein, yeah, like that makes sense, but even Einstein, like if you have to know, if you really want to appreciate Einstein, he just has, he's playing a role in physics, and although his work has been expansive and really important, it's not all there is. And let me make that point more clearly. So help me to make this point more clearly. Basically, what I'm doing now is I'm making a YouTube video on mindfulness-based stress reduction. And in doing so, I've encountered a few figures that I think are problematic. Specifically, Deepak Chopra was the most one, because he uses a lot of scientific terms in a way that kind of isn't good. And then he has a very large criticism section of his Wikipedia page. So I'm encountering another person, Paul Ekman, who similarly has some pretty big criticisms and a very large criticism section on Wikipedia. So I just kind of want to let my audience know what kind of channel this is. This is a science-based channel, evidence-based channel, and I kind of want to be careful to like make a message that, like, idolizing or worshiping or like holding on high up to a pillar, like scientists can be problematic, and I'm trying to make that point with like Albert Einstein, where like, you know, you might say Albert Einstein is this, you know, figure that to be held on high. But when you really actually start doing physics and looking into it, although his contributions were really critical and really important, he's part of a whole ecosystem of brilliant, you know, foundational scientists, you know, Gauss, Newton, you name it. There's thousands upon thousands of really important contributors, and to just take one person and kind of hold them on high and say that they're kind of the definitive representative of the field, when you start to really look into it, that can kind of lead you astray. Is that a good point, or is there something problematic with that point, do you think? And it looks like
they have large followings, but they also face significant criticism.
It looks like I didn't hear everything I said, unfortunately. I'm not sure what happened, but it seemed to stop listening to me there. So... Well, it's not so no. I think you got the thing wrong. So the dangers of idolizing scientists um, aren't that like, you know, Einstein isn't infallible. It's that Einstein is part of a large ecosystem of science. So it's like if you just say like Einstein is physics, you like basically don't learn about a lot of physics. Yeah, that's more what I mean.
By focusing on the ecosystem rather than idolizing individuals, we get a deeper, more comprehensive understanding of how knowledge advances. Does this align more with your message? Would you like to digest any part of it?
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is like with this person we're studying about you know, psychology, this Paul Ekman, what I'm saying is like if you want to learn psychology, you know, you shouldn't be like, oh well, this is the definitive source in psychology. Like you should you know, learn the concepts and the fundamentals. And like, you know, if you're a Paul Ekman fan, I feel like that's where you're kind of going awry. Like even if you're like an Einstein fan, like, you know, all of his work is based on like physics. So like I'm kind of advocating to be more that people are more of a fan of the particulars and less a fan of like the people. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Got it. You're encouraging people to focus on the fundamentals and concepts of the field rather than idolizing individuals.
Exactly.
Here's a refined version of that message. Introduction. Clarify the channel's focus. This channel is about exploring scientific concepts in depth with a focus on evidence-based learning. Avoid idolizing individuals.
Do you think that's a good thing, though, or do you think that's just kind of silly and doesn't make sense? Like, assign it a letter grade.
I think it's a strong message overall, and I give it a B+.
All right. How would you change it so it got an A+?
To elevate it to an A+, I make the message more compelling by focusing on the practical benefits of valuing concepts over individuals, using real-world examples to highlight how idolizing figures can lead to misunderstandings or hinder progress.
Okay, we'll do that.
Here's a revised version. Introduction. Purpose of the channel. This channel is about understanding science and psychology through evidence-based learning. Today, I want to discuss an important issue when it comes to learning, the difference between being a fan of concepts versus being a fan of individuals. The problem with idolizing figures. Many people, when they start learning about psychology or physics, gravitate toward figures like Paul Ekman or Albert Einstein, treating them as the ultimate authorities. But that's limiting. These figures have made great contributions, but idolizing them can prevent you from engaging with the broader knowledge that exists. Real-world consequences of idolizing. For instance, if you're only a fan of Paul Ekman, you might miss out on other important developments in psychology, like research into cognitive biases or the limitations of Ekman's work on microexpressions, which has faced criticism. Similarly, Einstein's work on relativity was revolutionary, but by idolizing him, you might overlook the fact that quantum mechanics, an area he famously had issues with, has now become a cornerstone of modern physics. Why focusing on concepts is better? By focusing on concepts, like the fundamentals of physics or the principles of psychology, you open yourself up to the full spectrum of knowledge.
Exactly.
Science thrives on a diversity of perspectives, with each contribution building on the work of others. No single person, no matter how brilliant, holds all the answers. Empowering your own learning. When you focus on learning the concepts, you're also empowering yourself to critically evaluate new information, ask better questions, and think more independently. You become part of the scientific process, able to adapt as new discoveries come to light. Conclusion. Science is a collective effort. In short, being a fan of the concepts rather than individuals gives you a deeper understanding and a better appreciation for how knowledge evolves.
I like that.
Science is a collaborative, ever-evolving effort, and by focusing on the bigger picture, you become a more effective learner. Why this is a plus. Real-world examples. By using tangible examples like Einstein's discomfort with quantum mechanics or criticisms of Hickman's work, you show how idolizing a figure can lead to blind spots. Practical benefits. Emphasizing how this mindset helps your audience think correctly and learn more effectively adds practical value to your message. Empowerment. Framing it as a way for your viewers to feel empowered in their learning journey makes the idea more personally impactful. What do you think of this upgraded version?
Yeah, I like that a lot. And one of the core principles on my channel is concepts, not commands. So it's a network engineering channel. So a lot of network engineers are tempted to be like, you know, router BGP 65001, neighbor 10.10.10.1, and just like, you know, memorize command lists. And I think that can help. But like, I just wanted to be clear that my channel emphasizes the concepts, like when you're forming a, you know, when you're doing that, you're forming a BGP neighborship, so you're sending the open message through TCP to port 179, and you're going through a, you know, a TCP three-way handshake with your neighbor, so you have to have the underlying connectivity. The routing table has to have a connection to it. So you know, it's like, so yeah, this is very much aligned with already like what my principles for the channel are.
That alignment makes perfect sense. Given your channel's emphasis on concepts, not commands, the message you're crafting about not idolizing scientists or figures really fits with your broader approach to network engineering too.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the mechanics behind the actions, not just following separate commands. For your video, you could tie in this principle with something like, when I talk about topics like mindfulness or network engineering, the same core principle applies. It's all about concepts, not commands. Whether you're configuring a BGP neighborhood or exploring the science behind it.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, it makes sense to, you know, to respect and to uphold to high esteem, you know, like Einstein, or like people who submitted really significant contributions. So, like, you know, Nobel Prize winners are definitely have my respect. I guess the point I was just trying to make is, it's really easy to like forget about like what is like, yeah, it's easy to get distracted and like pulled away from the actual content, and instead to be like, you know, a fan of the person, and like, oh, like Paul Ekman, oh, I love his work, oh, micro expressions, oh, they're so, oh, you know, I spent all day practicing recognizing micro expressions because I'm such a big fan of Paul Ekman. It's like, well, you know, you should be reading the criticisms, the peer review. You should be reading from another scientist that disagrees with him, to just like only look at Paul Ekman's work. Although you might not have time to look at every single, you know, every single paper ever written. But I don't know. I feel like I'm just getting distracted. I need to get off. I need to get back on topic. This is a video about Mbsr, and I just got completely distracted. So let me get back to task.
It sounds like you're making a thoughtful distinction, acknowledging the importance of respecting major contributors while also urging people not to become too focused on the individual at the expense of critical thinking. That's a valuable perspective. As for refocusing on the Mbsr video, you can briefly acknowledge this point but then pivot back to the topic. Maybe something like, I want to take a quick moment to emphasize that while it's important to respect major contributors in any field, it's just as important to engage correctly with their work. This applies to mindfulness-based stress reduction, Mbsr, too. Understanding the science behind it is more valuable than focusing on any one person. Now, back to Mbsr and how this practice can help reduce stress through evidence-backed techniques. This lets you make your point without straying too far from your core message. Does that help bring you back on track?
All right, yeah, that brings me back on track. So let's move over to the formal and informal. So the formal is the hardest. It's about a half an hour commitment. Today is the 27th, Friday. So I do have yoga there, but that's a bit much for me, honestly. Maybe I could do the chair version, but I feel like that's not what I want to do. I feel like the body scan could be a good one. Yeah, I feel like the body scan could probably be a good one. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm thinking about scrapping this video because I just don't have anything in the tank right now. Let me try to do the bare minimum here. So I think do an informal. So I was at rehearsal for my community orchestra concert, and I practiced mindful awareness of my viola scroll. So what was going on when you thought to do the process? I guess well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't want to dwell on this, but there was an incident uh, where an instrument might have been damaged. Where it was possible for an instrument to get damaged where typically it is not. So what did you notice while you're doing the process? First of all, I noticed my instrument is like instrument is really beautiful, and professional. I am lucky to have it. Scroll still had residue from price tag when I bought it in 2004. Not sure how to remove that without damaging the varnish. And then I did notice it got beat up a little bit. I don't know when or how that happened, but there was at the top of the scroll a little bit of wear. And when I say that, I mean it wasn't like 100. Like, yeah, it was perfect, but you know. Yeah, there was a little bit of like the varnish kind of coming off near the top, but I think it was probably like that when I got it. What did you notice after you did the process? I guess I felt calmer and was kind of felt calmer, was able to let my mind be more at ease after the incident. And then what did you learn? I learned I have an absolutely beautiful and gorgeous instrument. Yeah, and I mean, my channel isn't for. Yeah, so I think that's all I'll say. You know, it was nothing. It was just the baton slipped out of the conductor's hands and hit my stand partner's instrument, and it appeared as though there wasn't any damage to it or anything. So it was just, you know, it's just the baton. It wasn't like a stand fell on it or anything. Like the baton's pretty light. So yeah, it just kind of put my head a little bit in a spin because you know, I don't want my instrument to get like chipped or damaged from something like that. But yeah, that mindful awareness, just looking at the scroll, really helped kind of bring my mind back, because it was the kind of thing too where like you know, it happened while we were playing, and like I thought what happened was my stand partner like string broke on it. And if that was the case, it's like, oh, I'll just go back to playing. But like, it was like something that kind of like I didn't expect, so I had to drop out for like a few measures. So like that mindful awareness exercise of just looking at my scroll helped me kind of get my mind back into like being able to play. All right, and I did that afterwards. I did that like minutes afterwards. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's good. I used mindful awareness there, and it made me feel a lot better. Okay, so next one is a formal practice, and they go hard. They want you to do a half an hour. Um, you know what? I feel like I want to compromise. Let me knock off some the rest of the videos, and then yeah, it's just I don't have it tonight. You know, this has become a slog for me, and it's because I have less time because I volunteered for the community orchestra. So I'm just, you know, I don't have the same kind of free time that I used to. So let's knock off at least one video, and then I think that'll be that for tonight. And week 7 will be kind of rough, but there's only 2 weeks to go, so we maybe take a little bit longer on week 7 and week 8. So let's knock this one off, and then I think that'll be it.
So I'll begin with a definition of mindfulness. This is from the book I wrote with Linda Carlson. Mindfulness is the awareness that arises out of intentionally paying attention in an open, kind, and discerning way. Next slide. So when I was first learning meditation, I decided to go to Thailand and study at a monastery there. And I didn't know very much about meditation, and I didn't speak any Thai. And this beautiful monk at the monastery, who didn't really speak any English, taught me to focus on the breath coming in and out of my nose. Sounded relatively simple, so I sat down to practice 16 to 18 hours a day, every day in silence. And what I noticed is that it was hard. It was really hard. And I started getting more and more frustrated, like, why can't I do this? And I started trying harder, striving. I became really judgmental towards myself, like, what's wrong with you? And meditation just isn't for you. You're a terrible meditator, and maybe you're just not spiritual enough, or you're not trying hard enough. And by about day 4, I was just a huge ball of knots and anxiety and frustration. And a monk from London flew in, and I said, can I please talk to someone who speaks English? So I went to my interview with him, and he said, how's it going? And I, hadn't spoken in 4 days, so kind of all vomited on him. Said, I'm terrible at this, something's wrong with me. I look at all these other people, and they're sitting there so perfectly, and something's wrong with me. And he looked at me with a lot of compassion and also a little bit of humor. And he said, sweetheart, you're not practicing mindfulness. You're practicing frustration and striving and anger. Next slide. He said, what we practice becomes stronger. Right? We know this now with neuroplasticity. What we practice becomes stronger. Our repeated experiences shape our brain. So what he said is practice paying attention with kindness, with openness, with curiosity. Be interested in your experience, compassionate with whatever's arising. Not that I always had to feel happy or compassionate or joyful, but that this pot of mindfulness was holding with care whatever my experience was. Next slide. So as I said, these words, what we practice becomes stronger, these 5 words really became important in my life, and it's incredible to see it play out in the science, but this is something that these traditions have known for thousands of years. And so when I came back to the States to get my PhD, I became really interested in, does training in mindfulness increase compassion? And so the very first randomized controlled trial I did was in 1998, and Decker's correct. I was told, you're going to ruin your career, you will never go into academia if you're going to study this meditation stuff, and if you do, at least don't study compassion and empathy along with it. So of course, that's what I decided to do. And I did a randomized controlled trial with medical students, and what we found is that training in mindfulness-based stress reduction significantly increased their empathy and compassion. Since that time, for the past 15 years, I've conducted 6 or 7 other randomized controlled trials that have been published showing that mindfulness significantly increases compassion for others as well as compassion for ourselves. Next slide. So this is very interesting, which is the first order question, which is, does mindfulness increase compassion? And right now we can say yes, there's a strong foundation. And so the second order question, which I've become really interested in, is how? What are the mechanisms of action? So I'm going to offer these to you just as a way of opening a conversation. These are ideas that I've been exploring and playing with. So I'll introduce 4 ideas. The first is Perfect. No, you're perfect. One more. Back to the superhighway. Yes. What we practice becomes stronger. I think the reason mindfulness increases compassion is because when you're practicing this way with yourself, moment by moment, right, we're with ourselves all the time, we strengthen the capacity to be compassionate with ourselves and with others. And I like to think of it as kind of we have these superhighways of our conditioned patterning. And so what I noticed for myself at the monastery was my superhighway, my habit pattern, was judgment and self-criticism and striving and thinking something was wrong. And so I had this image of this kind of like little country road that I was digging out of compassion, of like a new way of being with myself and being with my experience. And that country road, that neural pathway gets stronger as we practice it. Next slide. Another reason I think mindfulness increases compassion is actually very similar to what Paul was just talking about with safety and slowing down. That there was the classic study, the Good Samaritan study done at Princeton University in the 70s. And what they found is they took seminary students and they said, prepare a lecture on what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a good Samaritan. And then half the group, they said, you better hurry because you're late to give this lecture. And these students went running across campus, afraid, scared, and they had a Confederate fall down in front of them. And the students, for the most part, ran by.
A Confederate? What?
The other half of the students were told, you have all the time you need. Go ahead to give your lecture. And the same person fell in front of them. And for the most part, they stopped. What I love about this study is it doesn't say, oh, we're such bad people. What it says is that when we're scared, when we're hurried, when we're not seeing clearly, our natural compassion doesn't come out. And so I think what mindfulness does is it helps us slow down, see more clearly, feel safe, so that we can express this natural compassion. The third way that I think mindfulness increases compassion is by helping us see our interdependence, our interconnectedness. John spoke about Indra's net, this understanding that we're not separate. And so I love this kind of metaphor of imagining that the left hand had a splinter in it. The right hand would naturally take the splinter out. And the left hand would say, oh my God, you're so generous. You're so compassionate. Thank you so much. It's just what the right hand does, right? We're part of the same body. We're part of the same body. Okay. Spinoza, who was my grandfather's favorite philosopher, he said, we're all cells in God's body. When we begin to see clearly that we're not separate, when we begin to see clearly our interdependence, compassion naturally arises. It's just what makes sense. Okay.
That's a good message. That's a good message for the USA right now. Don't worry, everyone. I'll get back to the tech stuff very soon. We're almost done with this Mbsr. We're going right back into hard tech.
Remembered mine. Next slide. A final pathway, I think, for mindfulness to increase compassion is that it helps us remember our essential nature. When I was first working as a clinical psychologist in a veterans hospital, I was leading a group of mindfulness training for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. And these were mostly men who had come back from Vietnam and who had been suffering for a very long time with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the group focused on training in mindfulness, really with an emphasis on holding ourselves and our experiences and our past experiences, even the seemingly unforgivable ones, with compassion. So I was leading a group of about a dozen men, and there was one man who never spoke, never looked up. And we were about 3 months into this group, and I remember saying to my clinical supervisor, I don't know what to do. I'm not reaching him. And a few weeks later, he went to speak, and he said, I don't want to get better.
All right, so this is definitely a rewatch. This was assigned on a prior. Either I did it as a supplemental material, or it was assigned on a prior. That's okay. We're almost done with it, so let's just keep watching it.
I don't deserve to get better. What I did was so horrible that I deserve these nightmares. I deserve this pain. And he proceeded to tell us, looking down, he really didn't look up the entire time. Looking down, he said, I wasn't even a soldier. I wasn't even in combat. I was just on the medic truck. And I would bring food and supplies to the villages. And when our truck would come in, the children kind of got to know that we were the ones with food, and they'd come running out. And one day we were coming into a village, and who came running out was our own troops. And they were bloody and beaten. And they came running to us, saying how most of them had died because the village had betrayed us. They had told the enemy where we were, and we had been bombed. And just as we're receiving this, the children come running out because they hear our truck. And out of the corner of my eye, I see my friend pick up a can of food and throw it at a small boy, and have it hit the boy, and he falls down. And he said, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was picking up a can of food, and I was throwing it at these children. And we'd cheer every time we'd hit one, like it was target practice. And as he's speaking, tears are running down his face, and he's looking down at the floor, and the shame in the room was palpable. And I looked at the other men's faces, a little bit nervous about what I was going to see. And all I saw was compassion. There was no judgment. They got it. They knew. They understood. They saw the horror of what had happened, and they also saw who he truly was. And I invited him to look up and to look around the room and to experience that compassion that was possible. Next slide. Some years later, a patient of mine gave me this poem, and I wish I had had it at the time to read. It's from Galway Canal. He says, the bud stands for all things, even those things that do not flower, for everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on the brow of the flower and reteach it in words and in touch, that it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. To reteach a thing its loveliness. And I believe that's what we're doing with mindfulness, is that we're holding ourselves, our experience, and each other with this compassionate presence. John brought up before the symbol for mindfulness, where this top character means presence, right, the hat, and the bottom character can be translated as heart. So mindfulness really can be understood as presence of heart. I'm going to end with a teaching from Jack Kornfield. If you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financially downturns you remain perfectly calm, if you see your neighbors travel to favorite places without a tinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate and love everyone around you unconditionally, if you can always find contentment just where you are probably a dog. Next slide. So, I want to thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
All right, so that was a rewatch, unfortunately, but it's off the list. So let's see what the next one is. Oops, I need the link. All right, here's the link. All right, let's knock off all the videos.
Yeah, self-compassion, best thing since sliced bread. Why isn't there more of it? It seems like a good idea, at least I thought so. Why isn't it more prevalent? I'll talk about in Western culture, although it's not just Western culture who suffers. This is a big one, confusion with self-pity. And it is annoying to be around people who are lost in self-pity, isn't it? We give the gesture of self-pity. It's also really dramatic, overly dramatic, right? So why is this self-compassion, self-pity? Well, first of all, this common humanity element is absolutely key. I mean, if it was just self-kindness, you might say, what's the difference? Self-compassion isn't poor me. Self-compassion it's hard for all of us. The human experience is hard for me, for you. This is the way life is. It's not egocentric, quite the opposite. It's a much more connected way of relating to yourself. And also, this is why the mindfulness is so important. When we're mindful of our suffering, we see it as it is. We don't ignore it, but we also don't over-exaggerate. And this is a big one that comes up. And part of this is the problem with language. People say, but don't we need self-criticism? Don't we need some constructive, healthy criticism? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not talking about healthy, constructive, kind, supportive, encouraging criticism. I'm talking about harsh, nasty, belittling, you're worthless, you're no good type of criticism. And that language sounds extreme, but it's really not. If you actually write down, especially on a bad day, some of the things you say to yourself, it can be really shocking how nasty it is, right? So that's a type of criticism I'm talking about. That you might say negative global self-evaluations. I am bad. I am no good. Okay. So what self-compassion does is it doesn't evaluate and judge the worth of yourself as a person, but it does see wisely. It discriminates. Self-indulgence, right? A lot of people think, well, if I'm compassionate to myself, I'm just going to skip work and just eat tubs of ice cream all day, and I'm just going to self-compassion doesn't mean you're going to do whatever you want. You aren't going to give pleasure for yourself only, because in the long run that harms you. Okay? So think of a very compassionate mother. Is she going to, for a child that she absolutely loves and has compassion for, is she going to say, yeah, don't go to school today, just blow it off, yeah, eat whatever you want, tubs of ice cream, that's fine? Of course not. A compassionate mother says, go to bed on time, eat your vegetables, do your homework, right? Because that's what compassion wants, health and well-being for ourselves. Compassion means we don't want to suffer, which means if we give ourselves pleasure in the short term feels good but harms us in the long run, then it's a problem. This is also a big one. Confusion with making excuses. I'm only human, right? Just blowing things off. Okay. And again, you could blow things off and say it's self-compassion, but is it really? Because if you really have self-compassion, remember, you are more able to see yourself clearly. It is safer to see yourself clearly, and therefore it's a lot easier for you to take responsibility, because it's okay to have messed up, to have made a mistake. So research shows you're more likely to take responsibility for mistakes because, again, it's not so psychologically damning to do so. And a lot of people are afraid of compassion, well, for various reasons, but one of them is they really think they need their self-criticism to motivate themselves and keep themselves in line. It's a really entrenched belief, and I think our culture kind of supports that idea. We need to be hard on ourselves. We need to crack the whip. Think of all the, the images we have for motivating ourselves. Often they're very hard. Okay. First of all, I have to say, if anyone does take this approach, I'd just like to ask the question, how's it working for you? So there's that level, right? Does self-criticism really help or not? Again, we go to the research. The answer is pretty much it doesn't really help very much. It kind of helps, but in a way that's not that effective. So what happens when we're motivating ourselves with self-criticism? It's the carrot and stick approach, right? The carrot is, I want to feel good about myself. The stick is, I don't want to feel bad about myself, right? So that's how we're moving ourselves along. It's really a fear-based type of motivation. I am not okay if I fail, therefore I must try harder and succeed so I will be okay. So then the other way to motivate yourself is with self-compassion, not self-criticism. So self-compassion, there is motivation inherent in self-compassion, but it's all about wanting health and well-being for yourself and encouraging and supporting yourself to be healthy as opposed to saying you are not worthwhile if you fail. Okay, so, and I've got this picture of a father and a son because I really think it's a lot easier to understand these concepts when we think about friends or parents and children and then apply them to ourselves. So we've got two scenarios, right? One is a boy comes home from high school with a failing math grade. Okay, and the kid wants to go to college. This is a problem. So the old way, actually, back when they used to have the saying, spare the rod, spoil the child, would be to harshly punish the kid, or even if it's not done with corporal punishment. A father could say, you loser, I'm disgusted with you. I'm ashamed. You are just, you really blew it. What a screw up. It kind of cringes, doesn't it? But sadly, I'm sure some of us in this room had that experience growing up. Okay, what's that going to do? Is that really going to motivate the kid? I mean, it may make a kid, behave. But what happens when you criticize like that, when we self-criticize especially, is first of all, we almost inevitably get depressed. Very painful. Depression is not exactly the most conducive mood to motivation. That's one of the things about depression is you don't feel motivated, right? The other thing it does is it makes us lose faith in ourselves. If we all the time tell ourselves, I'm no good, I'm not worthy, I can't do it, we don't feel confident to take on new tasks. And actually, the research shows that self-confidence, or perceived confidence, is one of the most important factors in motivation that makes people keep trying. And then the third thing that happens when you constantly criticize yourself is you become afraid of failure. I'm not even going to try because the consequences, if I fail, are too devastating. Better just not even go there. Okay. But imagine this scenario instead, which hopefully happens much more often. The son comes home with a failing math grade, and the father says, "Whoa, you must be really disappointed. Hey, listen, it's okay. It happens to everyone. People do fail. I still love you. You aren't bad for failing. I accept you anyway. But it is a problem. I know you want to go to college. You got to get your math grades up so you can get into a place like UC Berkeley, right? So what can I do to help you? How can I support you? Do I need to help you with your homework? Do I need to get in a tutor? Let's figure out what's going on. But I believe in you, and I know you can do it, and I'm here to nurture and support you along the way." But that's actually much more effective in the long run for having that child learn the skills he needs to learn to go on. And yet we don't really do that with ourselves very much. For some reason, we believe that the harsh self-flagellation approach is more effective than being kind, supportive, encouraging, nurturing. Okay. So not only will they argue, but we'll talk about in a moment, there's research to show that that's really not the case. Self-compassion is a very effective motivator. There's another thing I'd like to talk about with this idea of motivating ourselves with self-criticism that I think is worth paying attention to. One of the reasons we're so attached to our self-criticism, even though it's painful, is because it gives us the illusion of control. You shouldn't have failed. Oh, that means theoretically it's possible that I would never fail just because I did something wrong. You shouldn't have made a mistake. You shouldn't have been this. You shouldn't have been that. We love the illusion that it's theoretically possible to be perfect, to never have things go wrong. To do everything we want to do. Just a show of hands, how many of you, if you could snap your fingers and get rid of your absolute worst trait that you don't like about yourself, would do it? Why wouldn't you? If we had so much control, why are we still doing it? Because we don't have that much control. We have a little wiggle room, but not much. Our genes, our early history, our culture, our stress level. There's so many reasons why it's hard to be exactly who we want to be, right? But somehow when we criticize ourselves, we feel that, well, maybe if I just tried that a little bit harder, I could be perfect. And that's not reality. Okay. So self-compassion takes a different approach. First of all, self-compassion is about self-acceptance. I fully accept myself as I am, flaws and all. I have compassion, kindness, love, even though I'm not perfect, even though I don't fail. And self-compassion is not about, self-improvement or evaluating yourself. Am I good enough or not? Trying to do more and more and more so I can see myself positively. It really is about accepting who you are as you are. Okay, well, does that contradict what I just said about motivation? Doesn't self-acceptance mean being passive, being complacent? Doesn't acceptance just mean acceptance? Well, yeah, it does, right? So if you accept things as they are, then how does that help motivate and make a change, right? And Carl Rogers talked about this very beautifully. The curious paradox, and it is a paradox, is that when I accept myself as I am, then I can change, right? And if you think of what's happening there, when we accept ourselves fully and we embrace who we are, flaws and all, then it actually does allow us to see ourselves clearly because it's safe to see ourselves clearly, and because we care about ourselves and don't want to suffer, we're going to try as much as possible to make changes that are, make us healthier and happier. But we also know that if we don't succeed, it's still okay. Right, so there's not this pressure of you are a bad person unless you change. Yeah, it'd be great if you could change, you'd be happier, but I accept you regardless. Right? And so sometimes I think of the way self-compassion is useful for motivating is it plants seeds. It plants seeds of, I'd really like not to suffer so much. I'd really like to be happier. I'd really like to be more fulfilled in this area. So I'm going to water those seeds with a sense of care and nurturance and kindness. But I know at the end of the day, I don't have total control whether or not that tree is going to grow. But I'm going to do what I can.
All right, so with that, there's just one video left, and I'll admit I'm really not, hanging on every word. Oh, and you know what? I think that one of them was a rewatch watch because I actually haven't been. Oh shoot, I'm not sure if I did this right. Did I watch this one? I can't remember.
Similarly, if you transport yourself in any way.
Oh shoot, yeah, that's on me. I rewatched by accident. Well, that's not good. All right, well, this one I definitely watched. That one I didn't watch yet. Then the Nerf one. Yeah. Okay. So okay, good. So all I've got left is this. I didn't accidentally double watch or anything like that. So just this, and then I'm all set.
Among all those qualities, there are other qualities like a sense of felicity, sometimes we can say bliss, of perfect attunement with oneself, with others, with the world. I think one of the qualities of that inner flow is some kind of unconditional benevolence. A priori, whoever might come in the field of our attention, whenever we are in that state of pure awareness and unconditional benevolence, will benefit from that. And it is really attuned to our deepest nature. That's why, in a way, that flow has a kind of felicity. Of course, violence does exist. It happens within human nature. It's a kind of coming out of that when we say something that hurts others, when we harm others. So often we say, I was no more myself. I was out of myself, as if we recognize that the state that we would like to be most of the time is a state of benevolence. I mean, if we are doing a seminar and telling you in 24 hours we'll make you 100 times more jealous and angry, who will come? But if we say we'll make you increase your kindness, your good heart, I say, oh, that sounds neat. So in fact, and even, neuroscientists have been working with years with Rich Davidson in Madison. When we study the different types of meditations, it turns out that the one that creates the strongest activation in certain areas of the brain and in certain frequency, like the gamma frequency, is the meditation on altruistic love and compassion. If you look at positive psychology, one of the founders or the pioneer of positive psychology, Barbara Fredrickson, just wrote a wonderful book called Love 2.0, in which she says that love, defined as positive affective resonance, is the supreme of all emotions or all mental states. It is among all the positive effects, the one that broadens the most your perspective, that come along with the most other positive emotions. So, and then of course, if you are in that state, it is most likely that your words and your actions will be somehow beneficial to others, perceived by others as something that puts them in a state of confidence, of openness, of trust. It'll be good to be with someone who has that kind of benevolence. So the Dalai Lama said that someone who is extremely angry all the time, even dogs run away from that person. So it seems that on an experiential level, so that this kind of warm-heartedness is the best possible thing to be, is the best possible thing to be with others. So it's a win-win situation. Another reason why it is like that, because it is attuned to reality. The pursuit of selfish happiness supposes that we are sort of separate entities, that we could build our happiness within the bubble of self-centeredness, the bubble of the ego. It's kind of stuffy in that bubble. And then we think me all day long, and everything is like a storm in a glass of water. Slightest sort of criticism or something that doesn't go exactly what we want. We're always about our feelings. How do I feel? Everything becomes like an enemy, a potential threat, or an object of desire. And that small world is always in turmoil. And then the idea that we could build our happiness within this small entity and say, well, others, I don't mind if they're happy, but it's not my job, is basically at odds with reality, because we are so deeply interconnected, and we are not separate entities. So on the experiential level, the pursuit of selfish happiness is a lose-lose situation. We feel miserable, and we make everyone's life miserable. Plus, it's not attuned to reality, so it doesn't work. That's why the French writer Romain Rolland said, if selfish happiness is the only goal of your life will soon be goalless, because it doesn't work. While the pursuit of happiness through altruism and compassion is a win-win situation, and it works because it reflects the deep interdependence of everyone. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, may I suffer the whole day, and if possible my whole life. Similarly, if you transport yourself in anyone's mind, even they are as much confused as we are, still, basically, fundamentally, they don't want to suffer. So we have that as the most common part of humanity, And therefore, if I have consideration and I value the fact that I don't want to suffer and I like to flourish, then I should value it in others, other sentient beings, not only human beings, but even animals. No one wants to suffer. So that's for the experiential side. Now, how can we bring that understanding that we may feel, hopefully, deep within, at a bigger level? How altruism could play a role in our time, to meet the challenges of our time. It seems that one of these challenges is to sort of reconcile three time scales, which is really difficult in our times. We have the fast pace of the economy. Everything goes so fast, and we say that's reality. If we don't deal with that, everything else, nothing will work. There's no happiness, no future, no nothing. Of course, that speed, it's a matter of a few years, or the end of the year balance sheet, or the ups and downs of the stock market, from one day to the next, the super high-speed transaction, all that gets speeder and speeder. But then there's also 10 years, 20 years, a career, a family, a lifetime. And what matters? Two things. The quality of every moment that passes by, the flow. And also, how do we look over a larger span of time? Was it worth living? How could I see the next few years as something that I have a sense of direction? Like I'm traveling the mountains in the Himalayas, and there's ups and downs. Sometimes it's beautiful, fantastic landscape. Sometimes there's hail and rain. But if I have a goal, every step is a joy in form of effort. But if I'm lost, if I have no direction, I sit there in despair. I don't know where to go. Even I make a few more steps, I don't know if they take me further away from my goal. Here is someone who is a Chinese person, lost his leg when he was 5. He's taking care of so many people, including his ailing father. And look at the joy of taking care of others. Cooperation, the joy of cooperating. Michael was speaking about the joy of flow, being together among hunter-gatherers. Cooperation is a highly rewarding sort of activity. We work together. It's a joy to work together. It's like a feast. Animals do so well. And then, of course, they struggle for life, the survival of the fittest. But now the new sort of development in evolution theory, like the super cooperators of Martin Novak from Harvard, clearly show that cooperation has been a factor of increasing complexity in evolution that was much more creative than competition. Competition exists, of course, but cooperation is so much more productive of new creativity and complexity. And also, the bonds of the quality of human relationship is perhaps the number one factor, according to a recent study of the OCDE, much before income. The quality of human relations is what they said people have answered to be the most determinant factor of their level of happiness, and not only for human beings. Now, here are two centuries from Japan. There's a place in Japan where there's the most centenaries in the world. Well, they all say it's because we live together from birth to death. Everyone is together. We enjoy together. This is what makes us special. So high social support, which is also linked with empathy, with altruism, is linked with higher mental health, more longevity, immunity, less heart disease, less substance abuse, less dementia. So now, is it true that we are all selfish? Well, of course, there are sort of simulated altruism. If you do something with having something in mind that you will get more in return, or if you just do to show a good image of yourself, or if you see someone suffering and you can stand seeing them suffer, you feel empathic distress and you don't really care for the person, but you just want to relieve your feeling so bad, that's not real altruism. And then, there have been school of people saying that you could always find a selfish motivation behind any act that looks altruistic. Well, that's his armchair science. There's never any study, whether some psychology or social study, that have shown that. Rather the opposite. Daniel Batson spent 30 years doing all kinds of experiments to show that there's always a number of people, no matter what the situation are, that behave in altruistic ways. I have no time today. I did that for 6 hours yesterday. It's more difficult to do it in a few minutes. But it's really shown in the lab, not just guessing people's intention and so forth. So now there's some people say, well, when people do something for others, they say, I feel so good to have done that for others. So I say, the warm glow, you did that because you feel good. So it's selfish. My friend Daniel Batson spent her whole life putting people in the lab in very complex situations. And of course, we have sometimes selfish and some people more than others. But he found that systematically, no matter what, there's a significant number of people who do behave altruistically no matter what. If you see someone deeply wounded, great suffering, you might just help out of empathic distress. You can't stand it, so it's better to help than keep on looking at that person. So he tested all that. And in the end, he said, clearly, people can be altruistic. So that's good news. And even says further, we should look at the banality of goodness. Look at here. When we come out, we're not going to say, that's so nice. There was no fist fight while those monks were speaking about altruism. No, we expect that, isn't it? If there was a fist fight, we will speak of that for months. So the banality of goodness is something that doesn't attract our attention, but it exists. Now, look at this. Okay. So some psychologists say, when I tell them I run 140 humanitarian projects in the Himalayas, that gives me so much joy. They say, I see, you would for the warm glow. That is not altruistic, you just feel good. You think this guy, when he jumped in front of the train, he thought, I'm going to feel so good when this is over. But that's not the end of it. They say, well, but when you interviewed him, he said, I had no choice. I had to jump, of course. He had no choice. Automatic behavior is neither selfish nor altruistic. Look at this guy. He's not thinking, for half an hour, should I give my hand or not give my hand? There's a choice, but the choice is so obvious that he does it. And also not only. So he has a choice, It's costly for him to keep his friend up. And there are choices that last much longer. Is the father Andrei Trogme and his wife, during the Second World War, they saved 3,500 Jewish families with the whole village. They never closed their door to anyone who sought refuge. That was a big choice. They risked all their life, of their family life, and they did it. So it's better to think that goodness leaves us gasping, for we refuse to recognize it as a natural human attribute. So off we go on long search for hidden motivation, scratch and altruism, and the selfish will bleed, something like that. Some extraordinary explanation for such peculiar behavior. He's a saint, she's a saint, but look at human nature, the bad thing will come up for sure. Instead of attempting to distance ourselves politely from them, while at the same time lauding their deeds, wouldn't it be better to rediscover artistic potential within us? Let's not search for mysterious explanation of goodness in others, but rather discover the mystery of goodness in ourselves. So that's what we should do. We discover in ourselves, express it outside, and be confident that that's the way we can live our life. So empathy, of course. Empathy is not altruism. Empathy is the trigger, the affective resonance, or the cognitive putting yourself in the place of others that alerts you that person is suffering or that person is joyful. And then, if you feel that, naturally, if you have consideration and if you value others, you'll do something. So empathy alone, if it's just left on its own, if you keep on resonating with suffering, can lead to burnout. And the study we did with Tanya Singer showed that if we just do empathy all the time, it's burnout very soon. It's like an electric pump that runs without water, it burns. You need a bigger sphere of altruistic love or human warmth to sort of remedy that as an antidote to burnout. So then people will feel more being taken care of. There is a sense of warmth that you feel also. It comes from maternal love, but it can be extended to others, and it's also across species. And so a mother tiger in Calcutta Zoo with some adopted piglets. And then this consolation that we give to others, and not only among humans again. So then, can we cultivate that at the individual level? Well, 2,500 years of contemplative history says yes. Meditation, cultivating again and again benevolence, does change yourself. Those are great Tibetan masters with whom I lived for 40 years. And then, son is the Dalai Lama, who now decided that maybe the collaboration with science will help to serve society better, to bridge this experience of contemplative 2,000 years with modern science. So there's Richie Davidson here, one of the great neuroscientists with whom I worked for so many years. And then comes going to the lab, studying the effect of meditation, of different types of meditation, with each of them as a different signature in the brain. So the fMRI machine, EEG, all have different functions. It's after 2.5 hours on MRI machine at Madison, so everyone is relieved that I survived. And now very briefly, you can see here are novice meditators who only did for 1 week. When they engage in compassion meditation, nothing happens. And when they rest, nothing happens either. The meditators, when they are at rest, nothing happens. When they engage in compassion meditation, there's a huge peak of activity in the gamma frequency. So then if you look at the brain similarly, those are meditators in meditation at rest, and in novices, nothing happened at rest, nothing happened in meditation, that's normal. They didn't train. But now, if you look not at people who did 50,000 years, but people who did 4 weeks, 20 minutes a day, you can already see a structural change in some areas of the brain that deal with assimilating novelty and not in the control group. So it's really anyone who train can do that. And even 2 weeks now can increase your pro-social behavior. Even children, 4 or 5 years old, there's a program in Madison with kindness and mindfulness that give extraordinary results after 8 weeks, increase of pro-social behavior. And then the stickers test, you ask them to give stickers to their best friend, their least favorite child, an unknown child, and a sick child. And before and after, and before they give everything to their best friend, after, there's no more discrimination. They give as much to their best friend and their least favorite child. We do that in India. We have 25,000 kids in the school that we built, and it has very wonderful results. Now, we can develop altruism at individual level. How we do that now? What is the point of junction between personal change and societal change, where it has to come through the evolution of cultures. That is faster than genes. That's one of the wonderful things, is culture can change faster. It's cumulative from generation to generation. Just a handful of people made the Declaration of Universal Human Rights. A handful of people in the 18th century managed to abolish slavery. So culture can change. They shape individuals. Individual change, neuroplasticity, epigenetics. They also change against the institution, and they are mutually fashioning each other like two blades of a knife sharpening each other. So it's our responsibility at the individual level to change, but it's also how we will change our institution. We can go to a more altruistic society, and that's what we need. It's no more a luxury, it's a complete necessity. So hail to the revolution of altruism. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm rudely eating a taco. I need to fit it all in. I'm out of time here. So yeah, those are all the videos. I did the formal. You know what? I think I want to do the informal as well as a short one. So I'll pause it, finish my tacos because I know that's annoying, and I'll do the formal, and I'll be done. So I'll be right back. All right, I'm back after eating. So let's close this out. Do a loving kindness meditation, and that'll be done for this video.
This meditation can be done in any position, and begins by taking a moment to be aware of any thoughts or feelings you may be experiencing right now. Acknowledging how things are for you right now. And when you're ready, beginning to bring awareness to body, feeling your feet, legs, hips, lower and upper body, arms, shoulders, neck, head. Beginning to feel the movement of your breath, the actual sensations of breathing, reminding yourself that you are here, alive and whole. When you're ready, you might bring to mind the image of a person you know or you've known in your life to be loving and kind to you. Someone who easily evokes feelings of warmth and love. Could be a spouse or a partner, parent or family member, a mentor or a close friend. Someone who's been good to you, helps you feel safe and whole, whose caring easily emanates from them to you. And if a person past or present doesn't come to mind, maybe someone who you know to be inspirational may come. Someone it's easy to imagine sending wishes of well-being to, wishing them well. And if it feels right, imagining saying to them, may you be happy, healthy, and whole. While you're saying this, picturing them receiving your wishes for them, seeing them close to you, hearing your whispers of goodwill. May you have love, warmth, and affection. May you be protected from harm and free from fear. May you be alive, engaged, and joyful. And may you experience inner peace and ease. You may have your own words and wishes for them, so feel free to use words that resonate with you. Taking a few minutes now to feel how it is to wish these things for them, letting yourself have the sense of the wishes for well-being emanating from you to them, connecting you to them. Noticing how it feels inside you as you send these wishes of well-being to this person you love or care about. When you're ready, seeing if you can imagine this person or figure wishing these very same things for you, knowing that they have your well-being in their heart, imagining them saying to you, may you be happy, healthy, and whole. May you have love, warmth, and affection in your life. And as you imagine them saying these words to you, imagine them close to you, feeling their presence in unconditional love. As they say, may you be protected from harm and free from fear. May you be alive, engaged, and joyful. May you experience inner peace and ease. Letting those feelings wash over you, feeling their unconditional love and caring for you. Letting the feelings of love and safety grow in you, knowing there is nothing you have to do to deserve these feelings and wishes, that they are given freely, without condition. Seeing if you can connect to the meaning of these phrases, even if you might not feel all the safety and warmth right now, knowing that that is their wish for you. And now, seeing if you can have these wishes for yourself, hearing yourself say to yourself, may I be happy and healthy and loved. May I be safe and protected. May I be alive and free. May I experience inner peace and ease. You may have loved ones for whom it's easy to have these wishes for, a child or family member or dear friend, or even a loved pet. And if it feels right, saying to them, in your own way and with your own words, may you be happy and healthy and loved in your life. May you be safe and protected and not suffer. May you be alive and joyful. And may you have inner peace and ease. And if it feels right, seeing if there are others in your life you can extend these good wishes to, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, saying to yourself, to them, may you be happy and healthy and loved in your life. May you be safe and protected, free from harm. May you be alive and joyful. And may you have inner peace and ease. It might even be possible to expand even further out to acquaintances, people you know of but don't have a personal relationship with, people you see around town, your neighbors, even people you don't have strong feelings about, like the salesperson who checks your groceries. Saying to these people, may you be happy and healthy and loved. May you be safe and protected, free from suffering. May you be alive, engaged, and joyful. And may you have inner peace and ease. And even if the wishes aren't infused with the same warmth and love as they were with a loved one, seeing if you can extend the wish without the expectation that it should make you or them feel in any particular way, connecting with what these wishes represent, keeping these people in your awareness as you send these good wishes, wishing for them to be healthy and whole, wishing for them to have aliveness and love in their lives. And if you feel strong and secure, and you're comfortable with this, you might try extending these wishes to someone who's difficult for you right now. Not necessarily the most difficult person in your life, just someone with whom there's been some sort of frustration or misunderstanding. And in doing this, it might help to remember that just like you, they want to be loved. And just like you, they want peace in their life. So you could say to yourself, just like me, they want to feel happiness and joy. And just like me, they want peace and ease. And they want to be loved and to know their loved ones are safe and healthy. And just like me, they're doing the best they can with what inner and outer resources they have. And if this feels possible to you, silently saying to them, may you feel peace and ease. And maybe remembering that if this were really true for them, they would certainly be easier to get along with. May you have love and warmth in your life. May you be happy, healthy, and whole. Even if this is difficult, there's value in noticing what it's like to extend the wish, recognizing that you are not condoning their actions, but seeing in them a human being with some of the same needs as you, to be loved, to be safe, to be at peace. And if this is possible, remember the circle that began with yourself and the persons that you love the most, and family and friends, extending that circle to include all the many people you don't know and who may live far away in other countries or cultures, and saying, may you be happy and healthy. May you have peace and ease. May you have love and warmth in your life. You could even imagine extending these wishes to include the animals and plants, all life on our planet and beyond, including ourselves, in saying, may we all be happy and healthy. May we all be safe and protected. May we all live together in peace, ease, and happiness. And now, as this loving kindness meditation comes to an end, taking time to appreciate and feel what's been generated through this practice. And even if there have been difficult parts of this practice, knowing that this practice has the potential to increase your sense of aliveness, of connection, and of belonging. And when you're ready, letting yourself feel again your physical presence, sensations of your body, feet, seat, upper torso, neck, and head. Beginning to notice the movement of your own breath, bringing aliveness and nourishment to your body as a whole, just as your good wishes of goodwill bring aliveness and nourishment to those around you.
lost track of time there. I have no idea what time it is now. How long I've been. Yeah, let's completely lost track of time. And that's it. That's the only comment. So, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.